Hello viewers, welcome to CodeForAny, Medicare App Backend API Inside. Today we need to develop this here, the user profile image. We need to change API, we need to developing here. Let's start how to write down inside the script UI. First of all, we need to create here the API app.post and bracket inside to write down here the API slash app slash user profile image. Give this here the API names, and to create this here the form data API multiparts API to developing here. This is the right way. Need to upload this here the image using here the multiparts form data API. Need to creating here. Now need to get this here the this post methods. We need to get this here the two variables. First one is the request and second one is the response. So need to get this here the callback request. First one is request, second one is response. And to write down here this callback operators, function operators. Now we need to declaring this here the form. We need to declare here the one variables. We need to write down here the where form is equal to, need to call this here the new multiparts multiparty dot forms methods. We need to call here and to declare here the form variables. Now this is are the declaring here the forms. Now we need to create here the form parse. We need to use this here. So we need to call this here the form dot parse, and we need to pass here the first of all the here the request, and we need to return this here the three callback parameters. First one is error, second one is the request object. You need to get this here the all parameters, and last one is to get this here the files, uploaded files. We need to get this here the third variables. Now this is the function operators. We need to use this here, and we need to call here. Now we need to check this here the if gets any errors for this parsing in the form, then to represent here and to return this here the functions and server response errors. Need to call this here the helper.throw HTML errors functions. Need to call this here. Need to write down here the errors and response and return these functions, and to terminate this here the server calls and to returning this here the response. Now after we need to validate here the not gets any errors, then we need to check this here the first of all, we need to, this is the token API. We need to forget this here the tokens. We need to first of all here the verify here the tokens. Need to write down here the declares here the forms. After before create here the forms, need to check this here the check access tokens. Need to call these methods. Inside need to pass this here the request dot headers. Need to pass here, give this here the response objects, and need to returning this three here the throwing here the user objects if valids, then to get this here this object, and we need to call this here the function operators, and not passed here the any required because we need to other users also need to specific not users need to pass here. That's why I need to all user access this here the methods. Now this is here the valid stand to get this here the user objects. Need to returning this here with user ID and user related data need to get here. Now cut this calls, cut here the these functions. We need to cut these functions here and to put here and to write here like here. We need to get here. Then after the parse these forms and to check here the against other methods, we need to call this here the helper dot check valid parameters. We need to check here, and other process we need to follow. First of all, we need to give this here the response object, request object. Then after need to check key. Also need to pass this here. So need to check here only file parameters because other parameters not get this here. That's why to checking here the file objects inside. We need this here the image parameters need to requires. If here not gets here the image, then to automatically call back return this here and this valid here. Now inside we need to get this here the file parameters need to get inside the payloads. Then to move out the next parts we need to continue. First of all we need to find out here the file extensions. We need to need here, and to create this here the random names we need to generating here. First of all we need to extract here the file extensions, where we need to give this here the name variables as a file extensions is equal to set this here the files Need to call this here the file dots image. Need to give this these parameter names, and we need to first index of value need to getting here, and now we need to get this here the original file names. Then after need to call this here the substring functions. Inside we need to pass this here the files dots image, and to give this here the values original file names dots need to get this here the last index tops value need to give this here the dot extensions need to put here, and we need to plus one, so we need to set here the semicolons, set here ones and semicolons, like we need to get here the file extensions. Now we need to write down here the file names. We need to first of all we need to generating here inside the save. Before we need to creating, first of all make sure we need to create here the public inside the image folders. Inside we need to create here the user profile folders. We need to create here. We need to create here the new files, and to give this here the name as a profiles. We need to create folders, and now first of all we need to making here the files name. We need to set here file name is equal to need to set this here the name profile, need to give this here this folder names, and need to set this here the slash. Then we need to complete this here the path. We need to create here the helper dot, we need to create here the random name, we need to generate for these files, and we need to give this here the file extensions. We need to put here now call these functions. Now we need to write here the another variables. We need to save inside the save path of the servers. We need to configure here. So we need to use this here the image path, plus we need to attach here the file names, and to give this here the save path. Now we need to call this here the file systems renames functions. We need to call here like here's, and we need to set this here the file dot image, give this here the first, and to set here the path, and then after need to give this here the save path, and to returning this here if any errors callbacks. Now need to check here's error like here's helper dot throw html errors, and response need to pass and return these functions like here calls. If not gets any errors and saving inside the renaming these files, need to create here the save inside the database of these files. Need to write down here, need to call here the db dot update, need to call this here the update user detail set, and to give this here the column names as a image, set here question mark and comma, need to set here the modify date, modify underscore date is equal to set here the now brackets where conditions inside we need to give this here the user underscore id creates here the brackets, like we need to write down here. Now we need to set here the parameters value. We need to give this here the file name as an image. We need to set here. Then after user object dot user id need to pass here, and to complete this here the query. Then after need to get this here the results errors and results value variables need to get for the updating query into returning here. Now also need to again need to check here gets here the errors. Then we need to call this here the helper dot throw html errors. Use this here the error objects, and to again we need to resend here the response for server and called and bird like here's. We need to calling here's, and to execute this here the function calls and service calls we need to end here. If here the not gets any errors, for means we need to check here again. If here results affected row more than 0, means here the successfully updates inside the database. If not here, then to call this here the response object dot json, and we need to call here the status as a fail, so need to pass here and need to give this here's message to write down here user profile image upload fail. Like we need to write down here the message and to send this here. If here the valids, then to call this here the again. So need to yesterday we need to call here the update profiles. We need to again we need to copy these functions and need to save here and we to paste this here, save this here. So now one more things we need to check here inside the image. We need to not passing here. Need to check here parameters as an image. Need to modify this here the functions. We need to need here because we need to need this here the full path we need to returning inside the showing here the image. That's why I need to modify this here the column names as an image. We need to change here. We need to write down here the case conditions. We need to write here. Need to create here. First of all, the two lines we need to create like here. Need to set here the brackets. Set here the cache when image is not equal to blank. Then need to call here the concat brackets double quotes and we need to set this here the path, give this here the helper dot image path functions we need to call here like here the brackets are the creating here and we need to give this here the comma and to set here the column names as a image and to concat with here the image. Need to get this here's and else parts need to call here's and as alias we need to set as a image. We need to set like this here the functions and to modify here. And now this API are the done update image profiles with here the multiparts form data API. Need to creating here the done and need to set here. If you like this video, please give the thumbs up. If you're new user, so please subscribe my channels and press the notification bell icon. You can get every new video notifications and awesome content. If you have any question, so please write down the comment sections. I will help you and sort out your issue. Everyone have a nice day. Goodbye and take care.